Hello all, and thanks for selecting my video. I'm just up the Law Hull just now. I've just finished like 7 days in a row of shifts. So I was up at I was up at 3:30 this morning, and absolutely knackered. So that's day 7 of 7 done, and went home, got changed, got about half an hour's sleep, and then I went to the Perth Road, get something at that tartan cafe, which was quite nice, and I drove up here to the Law Hull, where I am now, and I just wanted to invite you along for a wee run in the car, and planning on going to Kingoodie Bay, just a wee drive. I'll take a sort of circular route and then going to end up back here. So what I'm going to do is actually use the dash cam to record the footage from here at the Law Hull all the way, basically going to dash cam the whole circuit back to here again, so you'll get all the dash cam footage from here round to the Kingoodie. I'll take a route through Longforgan. I'll stop at Kingoodie, then I'll get some videos with the camera, which I'll add on to the main video, and then I'll do the main drive back, the dashcam footage back to here again. So what I'll do is I'll turn the camera around, I'll show you roughly the route that I'm going to take. Okay, cheers. So from the Law Hull, basically, I'll get some of the views while in here as well. There's Cox's stack in the distance. It's a municipal water tower. You could just make that up. Then they've got 9 wells tower. You've got the Balgy Hill. You could just make the top out of the observatory. It's maybe hard to see on this, but you could just make it out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the drive along Riverside Drive and onto the motorway up to Longforgan, through Longforgan, and then going to come down the country road, or it's the sort of like the unclassified road that runs from Errol to Longforgan and then Kingoodie. It comes in at Kingoodie, so we're going to take that drive in towards Kingoodie, and then I'll stop at Kingoodie. Kingoodie Bay, you can sort of like, it's in that area there. It's kind of blocked by Balgy Hill, but it's in that general area. So I'll be stopping there, getting some videos and that, just of the scenery, etc. And then I'll continue on the drive back to here where I started. So you're more than welcome to sit back and relax and enjoy it. I'll do a voice audio while the dash cam's on, because I can't really do that whilst I'm driving. It's not really, it doesn't work, it doesn't pick up very well the microphone, so I'll do that once I compile this video. But while I'm up here, I'll just point out some of the main the Sidlaw Hills, Craigaville and the masts. You've got the big TV transmitter in there to the right of that. Yeah, it's a clear day today. You can actually see right out to the Ben Lawers, I think it is. Ben Cluey and that. Oh, it's a brilliant day. It's not exactly warm like, but when it's fresh like this, it's usually quite clear. You can see for miles. Right, so let's get on with the drive then. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, that's us all set up with the voice audio now. So we're just moving from the top of the Law Hill, we're just en route now to Kingoodie Bay via Longforgan and the back road from Longforgan into Kingoodie. So I hope you've sat back and relaxed and got yourself a cup of coffee like what I'm doing right now. So I'm just basically doing the audio and watching the video whilst I'm recording the audio here. I'm just gonna just hit a wee blether with ears, I suppose. It was a nice enough day. I was totally exhausted that day, like. Oh, so it's like, you know, you work at the buses, the shifts and that are, because it was coming up from a long weekend off, the weekend before was like weekend on, so I was working 7 days in a row. But actually, on that particular rota, I had a loo day in. I had a day off on the Sunday because I put in leave for at the start of the year for my hiking club. But because of all the restrictions, the lockdown restrictions, the hiking clubs postponed. Well, they'll cancelled this year. But the leave that I put in, the loo days that I put in, is it surprised me. I looked on my duties and there it was. I forgot that I put it in. I totally forgot all about it, all what was going on. But yeah, so still a lot of shifts. You working early, well, early's not. That building there we're passing is the pumping station, the old water pumping house. What I don't want to do is get this audio out of sync. So, yeah, it's quite a nice, wee drive. I thought I'd start it from the Law Hill because that's a regular place I like to visit, and it's a well-known place in Dundee. So if you wanted to follow the route that I took, then it would be an easy starting point. But as you'll probably know if you've watched my previous videos, you know that I'm a believer of the, well, what you could call the supernatural. I say that because I experienced it. And one of the things that just amazes me that's been happening lately, much more intensely lately anyway, is synchronicity. Or in other words, like mega coincidences. I mean, just off the scale coincidence. I've got loads of examples. I'm just kind of winging this audio. I've not written anything down, so I'm going to try my best to explain it. I just didn't have the time to. I've got other stuff to do, so I'm just going to wing it and try and explain as best as I can what I'm trying to say about regarding these mega coincidences. I mean, I've got a list here just to remind me of some of the ones. I mean, there's that many, but there was a recent one there. Just I was watching I watched like various stuff, and I was watching the documentary about the fraud of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I wasn't even. I mean, it got suggested to be by a mate, and I seen it before, years ago before the documentary, but just recently, a friend. She basically sent me a link on Messenger for this documentary. So I watched it, and unbeknown to me, it was on the date, the 18th of September this year. That's the day I watched it. But the fraud actually took place. It was recorded on the 18th of September 2001. I never planned that at all. I don't think I just can't understand how that would be. I didn't even think about that documentary. It was my mate Lass's idea. She just came out with she brought the subject up. I thought we were talking about other things and that came up. Well, she brought it up and sent me the link. And I just got around to, when I got the time, I said, right, I'll sit down and watch this documentary. And it just dawned on me that the recording for the original show, the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the major fraud, I had on the cheque written 18th of September 2001. That turned out to be the same. I mean, it was just 18th of September this year, 2020. The sheer chance that I watched that. So, I mean, there's loads of them, loads of coincidences. This is a bit more of a difficult one to explain. Well, as you know, I've worked on buses well, that's my job. I've worked on it for 12 years. But before I worked on buses, I've been interested in buses. I'm a bus enthusiast, if you like. A bus spotter, as they call it. I always have been since I was a kid. And in the early 90s, well, late 80s, the Dundee bus company, Tayside Buses, they had double-deckers. They had a model called the Volvo Ilsa, but I won't go into that. I'll go into what the point I'm trying to make is the fleet numbers. There was basically the model of bus that had fleet numbers 128, 129, 127, 128 and 129. That was the fleet numbers of a model of Volvo Ilsa. It was a Mark 1. And these buses were mothballed. In other words, they were taken off the road and stored for about just under 3 years. They were stored away. They weren't needing them. They didn't need them, so they didn't need them until about 3 years later. And then they put them back into service. And they remained in service for a further 2 years. And at this point, they were already old buses, so after that 2 years, they sold them off for berry buses and various other things. So in 2015, 2012, 2013, it was round about, it was a good 20 years later. So when I started, this is like, these Ilses, they were off the road. They were sold in 1991. So around about 20 years later, in 2011, 2010, 2011. At this point, I was already with the company for just coming up for 2-3 years. And they had other buses at this, they had, the fleet numbers were, they shared that after the buses have been sold, the fleet numbers get put onto other buses, like the ones that were replaced. So they had other batches of buses that also had these fleet numbers. And they went through a very similar kind of process. Just by chance, this was not how it was, it wasn't staged this way, because they have no connection in these models of buses. There isn't any, it was a different company. It was bought over by West Midlands at this point, back in 1997. So the buses that shared these same fleet numbers went through a very similar pattern. They too went off the road. Well, they didn't actually go through. They went down to the parent company of ours, which was down in Birmingham. They were transferred down there, and because being in a batch of bigger fleet numbers, they basically selected these 3 buses, 127, 128 and 129. They came back to Dundee and they basically worked for another 2 years. Just the same pattern as the earlier ones, the Ilses. It's not very easy to
explain, but there's no connection. It wasn't staged that way. It's just that the numbers seem to be following a more or less identical pattern. I mean, they were sent away out of Dundee for 3 years. They came back, served 2 years, and they were there. And 129, the early original one in 1991, the Ailsa, that was the last Ailsa to run in Dundee back then in 1991. And in 2015, I think it was, round about then, the 129 single-decker B10L Volvo was the last of its type to run in Dundee, just like that of 129 of the Volvo Ailsa. Now that, the fleet numbers, that, let's say the company was a different company, it wasn't staged that way to me. I don't see how it could be. A totally different model. But the numbers seem to follow the same pattern. It's just, you know, it's not very easy to explain it. I'd have to kind of, but basically the numbers, it's the way the fleet number, they just seem to have followed pretty much the same pattern. They were randomly picked. They picked these buses to come back into service for the circumstances that they were in, but they couldn't have been connected to the earlier ones because it's a totally different setup. The ones back in 1991, late 80s, were sent up to Aberdeen for storage. They had these fleet numbers, and the other ones, single deckers, were sent down to Birmingham to do service, and it was roughly the same time they were out of Dundee, and then they came back to Dundee and done 2 years service, and then 129, which was the last one back in the early 90s of that model. It just so happens that 129 in the Volvo B10L model was the last of its kind and the last to run in service. There's other things as well with the fleet numbers. I mean, if I went back 2 years ago, the way my shift pattern works, I've got like every 4 weeks I get my long weekend off, and on the very last, day 7 of 7 back in March 2018, I was about to come off from my long weekend, and the fleet number of the bus, the double deckers that were running, it was 4701. Now that was a fleet number, and that afternoon on that day, day 7, it passed me and it sounded really loud. It was the silencer, the exhaust silencer had blown. I was actually completely blown, and it sounded really loud. I mean, you couldn't miss it. It was, and you know me, I like all the big engines and the sounds, and you know, I got the tractor pulling and truck pulling, and you know, I've got an ear for it. I would notice right away if there was something like that going on. I would be able to recognise the sound, so I spotted it right away, and I was like, oh gosh. I went and caught up with it later on and went for a wee journey on it. It was loud. It wasn't as loud, it was deep, but sticking to the point I'm trying to make, but that was back in March, March 2018. It was my last day of day 7 before my long weekend off. So exactly 4 weeks later, on the next cycle for my long weekend off, on day 7 of 7 in the afternoon, right, the bus I was actually driving, 1781. Different model, but I ended with a 1. It was 1781. Now, it's very rare for a bus to have a blown set. It's rare to hear that. And so exactly 4 weeks later, and in the exact same, pretty much the same pattern, on day 7 of 7, the single deck 1781 had a blown exhaust also. And as I say, you could wait years and you'll probably never come across such an issue. You won't hear it because it's very rare. But there it was, 4 weeks apart, on the exact same day 7 of 7, 4 weeks apart, in April 2018, and I get the exact same scenario. You know, there's more. I mean, there's lots of coincidences. If there's buses fleet number 2239, which is a model of single decker in Viro 200, that's got a kind of like it's a kind of water pump sound. It makes a kind of unusual sound. I mean, the buses all run fine like that, but I've got an ear. I listen to the engines. I know the models of the sounds of the engines, and it's got a particular note from I think it's possibly the water pump. And unrelated to that bus, fleet number 2039 has a very similar sound to it. And not only that, if I go back 30 odd years, back into the 80s, the Ailsa buses that were running about back then when I was a kid, bus 39 had a similar sound as well. 39, that seems to be, but it's not just that number, that pattern happens quite a bit with various things, other ones as well. But it's just, this is an example I'm giving you. And like, there's no connections between them. But yeah, I've tried to cover that as best as I could. Like I say, I'm just winging this. I haven't really pre-scripted this or anything like that. I just hope you get the message and try to explain that these coincidences are pretty mega, like. Pretty mega. So there's loads, but I'm going to sort of like mention a few other things that are quite, well, mystical if you like. Interesting, for me anyway. If you were around in the 80s, well, yeah, 80s anyway, and even into the, well, certainly in the 80s, but in the 90s also, and possibly up to about 2010 I reckon. But certainly the 80s and 90s. If you looked up into the sky and you saw the planes cruising, you know, the aeroplanes, not the ones that, the jet planes that left the contrail, left the trail. We were told that they were contrails, and you would look up, you would see a dot in the sky, you would see it moving, and you would see the white trail at the back. Like you say, we were told that it was contrails, and that was it. You would see it moving very slowly, and you know, you wouldn't hear it, you would just see the dot moving. I remember asking that when I was a kid. I said, well before, in the early 80s, I wondered what it was, and we were told it was a plane, and it was leaving a condensation trail, and it was cruising at its cruising altitude at about 6 mile high up into the sky, you know, 30,000 feet. But the point is today, right, if you look up into the sky and you see the planes that are cruising at that altitude, you would see the actual outline of the plane. You would be able to make out the wings, possibly even the engine as well. By the way, this is Long Forgan we're in. We're just going to make a turn down Station Road. This is the road that goes onto the country roads that eventually come down onto that road, the back road that comes into Kingoodie, Kingoodie Road. So, yeah, where was it? The planes. If you look up nowadays, certainly for me anyway, because I remember what it was like before, you could see the outline of the plane, you would see the wings, you would see the engine, and you could also hear it slightly. You could actually hear the jet engine slightly. And the trails that come out the back are, well, much more pronounced, and they stay for a lot longer. But I'm not going to go down into that subject about the trails, not in this video. You know, I've done research online, etc., and I get various theories for it as to what's coming out the back of them. But I'm not, as I say, I'm not saying anything about that on here. But what I'm saying is, if you look at the planes now, you can actually see the outline. You can see the size of the planes. You can actually hear them slightly. But back in the 80s, you couldn't. So what does that mean? It means that either the plane, if they're cruising at the same height, which they're supposed to, at about 30,000 feet, that's around about 6 miles high into the sky. So how could we see the outline of the plane now? And how could we hear them as well? But back in the 80s and 90s as well, perhaps, and even into maybe the 2000s, it would only just appear as a dot. The commercial planes would just appear like a dot, but now they're cruising at the same height and we're able to see the outline of the plane, and like we're able to hear it also. How is that? How could that be possible? If it's either the planes have got mega big, I mean ginormously big, in order to see the outline at that height. I mean, if you see a distance, if you see an object in the distance 6 miles away, right, it'll look, depending how big it is, of course, right, you could get that size perception in your head as to how big it is. Now, the plane hasn't got like 100 times bigger all of a sudden, but you can actually see the outline much more clearer now. Whereas before you couldn't. It was just a dot. And I don't understand how that could be. It's either that the planes aren't cruising at that height anymore, that they're cruising at a much lower altitude. I mean, if you had the plane on the ground with a white background, something that wouldn't blend or camouflage the outline of the plane. So you'd had it 6 miles away, you would see it at a certain size. Either the planes were tiny in the 80s, the jetliners, or they're much bigger now. But either way, it's still, I just can't quite understand how that back then it would just appear as a dot. Like on the windscreen there, you see like little dots, that's just dirt on the windscreen. That's how it would look like in the 80s. It would just be a dot moving in the sky. And you would get the contrail as I was told what it was, coming out the back, because you would see it and it would disappear as well, the contrail. But today, the plane, you would look up into the sky and you would see it. As I say, you could actually see the outline, the profile of it, the wings. You could even hear them. Before you couldn't hear it in the 80s, you couldn't hear the plane, you would just see the dot. And the trail coming at the back, it would just disperse, dissipate. But today, at that height, you could actually clearly see the profile. You could just hear it. You could actually hear it slightly. And it's supposed to be at the same altitude. And the trails that are coming out the back linger and form into... I've watched it. I've seen it happen. They don't disperse like how it used to. But like I say, I'm not going into the theory of... there's stuff out there online. You could get tons of opinions and theories online. But so there's something about this perception of things, how it can be seen over distances. Anyway, here we are. Gosh. That's it, Kingoodie Bay. And what you're going to see next is the camcorder footage. I'm going to get out and I go for a walk using the camcorder. So I'll see you in a bit, and I'll hope you enjoy that, okay? Right, that's his at Kingoodie Bay now. I went along the motorway, the Joe Carriageway, and went through Long Forgan, and I'll do the circular route. As I said, I didn't come along Riverside Drive coming here. I went by the Joe Carriageway, but I'm going along Riverside Drive on the way back to the Law Hill, so I'll get the dash cam footage for that as well. So all that there behind me is all the bay, Kingoodie Bay. It's really nice. It's really good down here. I'm going to go for a walk along the road for a wee bit. There's a wee sort of there's a bit where you can go under the railway. There's like a wee railway bridge you can get under that. It takes you to the fields. You get access to the fields and that up there. So I'll go for a wee walk. I'll film this while I'm doing that. So I'll just turn this camera around for that. Okay. Yeah, so that's the camera pointing the other way now, so you get the actual view of the bay a bit better. When I'm doing the selfie mode, you don't really get the view quite as clear. So I'm just going to go for a wee wander along this road here. You can access, there's a sort of like a railway that runs along
the top of that embankment there, the Dundee to Perth line, and there's like a wee railway bridge just along this road a bit. So first thing I'll do is get myself on the other side of the road, because when you're walking on these roads, you're best walking against the traffic so you know what's coming. If you could avoid walking with your back to the traffic, then that's the better way. So yeah, it's a good road for cycling along. You could cycle to Perth quite easily because it's a relatively flat route. It's about 20 mile for a year to Perth. So part of the cycle route 77. So it's popular with cyclists and that. Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice wee part of Dundee. Well, it's technically not actually. Kingoodie doesn't come under Dundee. It isn't officially part of Dundee. Neither is Invergowrie. Officially it's under the Perth and Kinross district, but it is joined to Dundee City. So yeah, I always got kind of caught up with that, but technically it is comes under the Perth and Kinross District Council. Even though it's physically joined to the City of Dundee. Yeah, it's nice. You can smell the overgrowth in that. You know, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll film this recording right up to the bridge, but when I'm going back to the car I won't bother filming it because it's just reversal, and it just saves time and battery and camcorder memory. So it's just basically I'll just record the walk up to it. Stop this a moment. Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's great to be able to just. That's the thing when you live in the Dundee. It's we're lucky in a way because it's so easy to get out into the countryside. You know, I drive buses. I've driven the city bus. Buses all around Dundee City, and it's so good to get out of the city for a while just to unwind. You know. And I like driving buses. I like buses. I like driving, but you do need to get a break from it as well. You know. And I enjoy coming out into the countryside, and being in Dundee it's so easy to get into the country because it's surrounded by lots of nice countryside, and Dundee's not massive. I mean it's not like I'm living in the centre of Glasgow or London or or Birmingham. So this is the bridge I was on about. So like I say, when I'm going to go along a bit, I'll film all the way up there, but I'll no bother filming walking back to the car because it's just basically the reversal of this. So, but yeah, many years ago, what, 1994, it was, a close mate of mine, he bought his first car, and we used to come down here. You were able to drive in. I mean, there was, now we've got these bollers, but at that time you were able to drive right in, and we used to just hang about under there. House takeaway, Chinese takeaway. We used to sit down here in the car, but this was the turned it as this was a hot spot for stolen cars. I mean, they used to just drive them in here, and then they would dump them and torch them just up there. So they've barriered this up now. Yeah, I remember once there was a stolen car just in that ditch down there. It was a real problem, like, but I remember one Hogmanay in the early 90s. My mates are watching, they'll ken exactly what I'm on about. Yeah, down there. Tenant Super, ring a bell, anybody? You'll know who. If my mate's watching this, he'll ken exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's a nice wee spot, this. So you could walk up all these trails and everything. That eventually goes up to Longforgan if you walk up that way. Oops. Yeah, so as I say, that's the railway line that goes from Dundee to Perth, and then Glasgow. See if we get up a wee bit. I'm getting a bit long here. I've not got my hiking boots on. It's grass is getting a bit. Oops. Yep. I was hoping the train was going to be coming, maybe get that filmed. I thought I heard one. It's maybe just a lorry or something on the road. Thought I had a train, but no. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now, or what we're going to do now, if you're with me on this, is I'll just I'll make my way back to the car now. But like I say, I won't bother recording this camcorder footage because it's just reverse. I'm just walking down there and back along the road. So, and then I'll pick up from the dash camcorder footage, and you'll get that as well, or the dash cam footage. Okay, right, see you in a bit. I'll see you back at the Law Hall actually. Right, cheers. Right, so I hope you've enjoyed a little walk along to the bridge there. That's just now back on the move again.
take a route back to the Law Hill. So we go through Kingoodie now, and then we go through Invergowrie and back onto Riverside Drive. Although I didn't actually go along Riverside Drive to get here, I went along South Road, etc. But I'm going back along Riverside Drive this time. And I'll go up by the Constitution Brae, up by the side of the old DRI, and I'll come up to the Law Hill that way. So you just bear with us if you want to see that. But yeah, I've still got my tons of stuff I'd like to mention, but I'm just going to mention some of it. Could do the rest in another video, or I could do more on another video. I mean, I just came across other stuff that is just mind-boggling for me anyway. I mean, it's either this, going back to the planes, the size of them. So I mean, it's cruising at the same altitude, right? In the 80s it appeared as a dot, and then today it appears as a profile of a plane. So either the plane's got much bigger so you could see the profile, or they're cruising at a much lower altitude, or there's some sort of magnification going on between the observer, which would be the person looking at the plane, and the actual plane. There's some magnifying it a bit, the visual magnification to make it possible to be able to view the outline profile of the plane. And the sound as well. I mean, how that happens, I don't know, but again, I don't get that. It's a mystery to me. I came across something myself. I don't know, if you've watched other videos, you would have probably heard me talk about the phenomena called the Mandela effect, where basically, in a nutshell, you could say that it's like history has changed. But I'll always say this every time I bring that subject up: if you're interested, do your own research on it and come to your own conclusion with that. I'll say that all the time, because it's really up to the person that's, how they perceive it. They either experience it, want to know more about it, or they're interested. It's up to you. But I know what I've experienced, and I've experienced something which is widely recognised or described as similar as what's online, which is called the Mandela effect. Now, I didn't call it that. I'm not saying that that's exactly what it is, no. I'm just saying that I've experienced something that resembles what is out there online that they call the Mandela effect. But there's loads of them. I mean, loads of them. And I've had my own personal experiences. Loads of them I've come across personally myself. And there's ones online that I could easily relate to, that I could see. There's others online that I wouldn't know either way, one way or another. But this one here, I just came across. This is the latest one. Well, late as in like just yesterday. It's the spelling of habit. For me, when you had words that were spelt, there was one spelling to that word, more or less, But now there's more and more various spellings for words. Habit for me always used to be HABBIT, with two B's in it. Now it's HABIT. If you go online and do a search on it, you'll find out that you could find that there's a choice. It's either one or the other now, because there's two spellings for it. But that's just one example. I mean, you could laugh at all, you might just think, well, whatever. But this video is not long enough, I could go into more and more of them. So that's just going on to Riverside Drive now. It's lots of things that I think about. I mean, if you can imagine yourself, ourselves, viewers, if you imagine, right, what is it when you walk along a bridge, right? For this is an example. If you walk along a bridge, a narrow bridge, right, and it's a sheer drop on each side of it, Now if it's got a barrier on it, on both sides, you walk along, you feel fine and comfortable with that. So if you walk along, say, the Tay Bridge, or if you, or better still, if you're driving along the Tay Bridge, you drive along comfortably, you know that you'll be comfortable driving along the Tay Bridge as it is. Now, if you can imagine the same bridge, right, that you're either walking along or driving along. Now you can imagine, if you imagine that bridge didn't have any barriers on the sides and it was just a sheer drop, nothing at all on each side, right? Would you feel just as comfortable about driving or walking along it? So if you're walking along a very, or even if you were at an observation point or something that's got railings on the edge, you're comfortable. You would feel comfortable about going up and going up onto the observation platform and then observing. But if it didn't have railings on it, you would feel less secure, wouldn't you? I mean, would you feel the same level of comfort or confidence or security even if you drove along a bridge with no barriers and no railings? Right? You would think, I know I would. I wouldn't feel comfortable. I would feel a lot more nervous. I would not feel as comfortable. Yet it's exactly the same task at hand. You're doing exactly the same thing. You're still going to be either walking along this bridge, narrow bridge, right? But because there's nothing there at each side, it totally changes your false sense of security. I mean, if they railings or barriers on the side of the bridge was there visually, right, you would feel a lot more secure. Now, if they were made out of paper mache, right, and you saw they were there, you would still feel just as comfortable about going across because you'd visually see that there's barriers there. You get this false sense of security. You would, but suddenly if they weren't there, you're still doing exactly the same thing, but you wouldn't feel as confident about going across. I mean, I know I wouldn't. I don't know about, I can't speak for everybody. I can't do that, but I don't reckon that it would be as safe. But what I'm saying is, it's a lot of it's psychology. Right, there's a lot of it that goes on. I mean, perceptions of things, how we interpret things. It amazes me. I find it fascinating. It's just how we outlook on things, everything, how we perceive things. That, there's a lot more. I believe there's a lot more to life than what we've been taught. A lot more. I reckon we could do probably anything we want if we believe we could do it. And then if we believe we could do it, then we'd be able to know, we would know how to do it. But we're just not programmed, if you like, to do that. I think we're more, well, I don't think. I believe that we just do things that we feel as though we've got to depend on things to get by. But I'm not going to go into that subject because not at this stage anyway. But there's lots of things that are fascinating. I mean, that is just like one point of many I'm just thinking about at the moment. But these, as regarding the mega coincidences, I mean, the list's huge, but I'm not going to go through them all. So yeah, we're just going along this riverside drive here. So if you're looking to that's south. That's looking towards Fife at the other side of the River Tay there. On quite a few occasions now in the last few years, I've seen like really bright planet-like stars at night in that night sky. It's always in that area. It's very bright. It's much more predominant than how it used to be. It never used to be like that. But it's just, there's more of these bright lights, planet-like stars or whatever they are, that they're just standing out much clearer now. So let's just go on to the waterfront, but passing the Dundee waterfront and coming up for the V&A. That's what's right in front now. Victoria and Albert Museum. I mean, I think it would be amazing if people were able to use telepathy to communicate. Words only give you a definitive idea of the, not like, if it doesn't give you the full, I don't know how to put that. Words really don't explain everything that the idea that somebody wants to relay over to someone else. It doesn't, it leaves room for misinterpretations and misunderstandings. It happens all too often in life, where you've got an idea in your head and you want to try and relate it over to someone else, or someone else's, other people or whatnot. Now, everybody can only see one thing or get an idea from their point of view. Like, if you look at if you've got one object, let's see, I'll try to explain this. So let's say you've got a crowd of people. Let's say you've got 30 people, right? And you've got one stage. So all 30 people will have their own point of view of that stage from where they are. So they're going to see it in their viewpoint. Right. So there's one subject on stage, but it'll be seen in 30 different ways for the same idea. But like this, if you think of a television, or this video for example, right? You could have the same 30 people sitting in a cinema. Well, yeah, we'll say a cinema for example. Now they're going to see, doesn't matter where they sit, well it does, everything matters, but they're going to get more or less the same point of view as everyone else, because they're looking at the same screen. So they're going to see the same thing on the same subject on the screen, but it'll be seen more or less equally. But if it was on something on stage, it would be seen differently. So the power of like television, or television or a screen, it's amazing how that you could get all these, billions of people, I guess, millions, billions, you get one idea of the same type, the same idea, and because it's seen on screen, they're all going to see it the same way, more or less. But if it's not on screen and you're in person and you want to try and explain it, they're only going to see it from where they are. So it just leaves a room for, I mean, it does, it just basically highlights how information is relayed over using technology like the TV screen, for example, or a cinema screen, or anything like that. But if you've got a stage, it's seen differently. So everybody's point of view will count, and it will mean sincerely to the person that's actually experiencing that. They're going to experience their point of view and see it their way, because that's how they've experienced it. But if you had a stage and somebody at the other side of that seating arrangement, they would see things, well, differently, because, you know, they're going to see it in their point of view, and they'll sincerely believe that. But the subject will have the one idea. I mean, if you think of it goes into this physics and science. If you're on a train that's moving at a certain speed, and somebody fires off a bullet, and you were able to see the bullet and all this, they see it at the point of view that where they were at, basically. It's complicated. It's not as, in other words, things are not as clean cut, as simple as that. Not even seeing it on the telly, although the television kind of focuses the point into one point of view, seen by millions. There's still differences. I mean, you can still see it in your own way, because it's not just physically where you're standing, it's also how you're interpreting it as well. If you mishear something, or if you're thinking of something, just that split second can make all the difference of how you interpret it, how what you have interpreted, what you've seen. And you'll have believed that you've heard or saw what you saw, but it may be different than what was relayed over, because of a third or X factor, other factors that would come into the equation that would skew your point of view. So what really, it's difficult to explain what I'm trying to say, but using the way we interpret, the way we interpret the world, using the 5 senses that we have, things can be misinterpreted easily. It's like if you're watching something and you get this inclined, if you maybe misheard a word, you would take it that way, and then you would follow it up that way, but it would be wrong, because it wouldn't be the intentions of the person or subject that's trying to relay their subject over. And it's, if only we were, I believe really we could do anything if we knew how to, and we do, but we just don't believe we could do it. But because, you could say that we're mind controlled or hypnotised or brainwashed, maybe, to believe that we can't, and we've got to depend on stuff like languages that we didn't invent, we just got taught them. It's not easy to teach if you're all in one environment. To teach, some people may learn better than others, but I believe we're all equal, but they're maybe more comfortable in the environment that they're in, so therefore they could learn easier. But you've got to ask yourself, how much are you actually learning, or is it just a case of repeating what you're being taught? So are you actually thinking about the subject that you're being taught, or are you just repeating and remembering what was being taught to you, and then just basically not really thinking but just acting on it, remembering? It's quite a lot of stuff to go on about, but so that was quick. I said back up near enough to the Law Hill. Well, I hope you enjoyed the wee outing, and listen to me blather on for a bit. Yeah, I mean, I've experienced the perception of time. I mean, I know, but I know what I feel, and I felt that it's got faster. I can't do as much in a given time that I used to, and I've been actually putting more effort into doing the same. things in a given time and not even getting it done because it's sped up. I mean, some say that because I'm getting older and all this stuff, but yeah, to a degree. I mean, obviously, if you're, well, I'm 45, so 1 year would be a 45th of my life. But if I was like 10, well, 1 year would be 10% of my life. It's a much bigger percentage, I know that. That would obviously make sense there, but it's not quite like that, because it's only up until fairly recently that I've noticed a mega increase in the acceleration of time. It's just gone a lot, it's gone in much quicker. But anyway, we're nearly at the top now, so we're just going to be basically parking up, and then you'll get the closing, you know, the summary. Just, well, you'll be seeing the camcorder footage. I'll just be giving you the closing, sort of the closing to the video. And yeah, I think I've done a few. I zoomed in on a few of the views that you get from the top of this law, if I remember right. The colours were amazing. The colour of the sky was quite amazing. In fact, later on that night, the sunset was just spectacular. So I think that's just going to be yep, that's it. Right, I'll see you a bit on the camcorder, okay?
Okay, that's us back to the law hall now. So it was a complete circuit I done. I went along by the dual carriageway, motorway, dual carriageway. Came off at Longforgan, through Longforgan, and down by the country lane, by the river. And I stopped off at Kingoodie Bay, which is in that area there. That's where I done the camcording footage. And then I drove right the way along Riverside Drive, right past the V&A and everything, and then I came up back to the law hall. So it was a 16 mile round trip, and it took just over an hour, about an hour and 3 minutes to do the whole deal. But the video will be about 10 minutes shorter than that, because remember, I only filmed the footage from the car, the walk footage from the car to the rail bridge. So when I was walking, I filmed the whole walk to it, and also whilst I was there, but I didn't film coming back from the rail bridge back to the car, because it was just the reversal. So the video, if you add 10 minutes to the length of the video, that's how long the trip lasted. That was good, that was quite good. So yep, so I'm just up at the law here, and the monument behind us and that. Yeah, it was really good. So thanks again for joining me on the day out. I hope you've enjoyed it. Just keep checking my channel for further videos like that if you like them. I enjoy going out doing that. So it's a nice sky by me. I should maybe get that on there. If you could see that. It's just the way the light is on the thing. But yep, thanks again, and thanks for watching. Cheers, bye now.